Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Hey everyone, Nicole, Russo, and Dan Illman welcoming you to this week's edition of the Oaks Countdown for DRFTV. And let's jump right in as we've got a lot to cover today. Here's a look at your current point standings toward a spot in the Kentucky Oaks after last weekend's big races in the final prep round. And if you've been following this division, you will notice some changes there. That's going to become the norm as we move through these final major point preps.
A huge move to the head of the class, Nicole, for the number one Tarifa, who is the number one on our Kentucky Oaks points leaderboard after taking a major race at the fairgrounds last week, the Fairgrounds Oaks, and she just keeps to be taking small steps forward with each and every start, and looks like she's going to be ready to peak on Kentucky Oaks Day. She is a prime contender to be sure.
Yeah, and as you'll look at Tarifa's past performances, for Godolphin and trainer Brad Cox, who has saddled two Oaks winners and certainly knows how to get them to peak on the day. You'll see her two impressive wins. You'll see that improvement that you talked about in the Beyer speed figures. Her pedigree certainly sets her up well for the mile and an eighth Oaks. She just sort of, I think she's still got some development to come mentally, as she is a hot horse. She pulled hard into the first turn and into the backstretch of the Fairgrounds Oaks. Cox telling our colleague Marcus Hirsch that the filly is still learning to settle. She's going to have to settle more. The larger field, the bigger crowd. Quote, she's got some stuff to work on.
But you did mention a very key point, I think, for the Oaks, and that's Tarifa's pedigree, which is stout and full of stamina. You notice by looking at her past performances, she's a perfect 3 for 3 around 2 turns. A mile and an eighth should be no issue whatsoever. And it's kind of amazing that she's been on this roll despite being still a little bit green and inexperienced. I trust Brad to have Tarifa put it all together on Kentucky Oaks Day. And with her tactical speed, she's allowed herself to work out trips in her races. It's not like she's really dependent on pace or trip. She can get close to any sort of situation.
Absolutely. And really impressive in that Fairgrounds Oaks, despite running against a really solid field there. Kind of a lot to digest out of that race, with Our Pretty Woman very game in her stakes debut to run second and likely moving on to Kentucky now. And Intricate, a little bit puzzling in her second start of the year.
It certainly was a disappointing performance for Intricate. I think a lot of folks were expecting her to move forward after her runner-up effort behind Tarifa in the Rachel Alexandra over a sloppy track. And for one reason or another, she just didn't perform up to snuff. She does have a great trainer in her corner. We know that Brendan Walsh obviously can win races like the Kentucky Oaks. He has done it very recently. I wouldn't be surprised if Intricate bounces back, but I do think Our Pretty Woman gave a very strong account of herself. Remember, this was her stakes debut, as you mentioned, only her third lifetime start. She's very well connected and well bred, being a $900,000 daughter of Medaglia d'Oro. She's one to watch.
And the other new name that you see on the Oaks leaderboard, along with Our Pretty Woman, is Everland, who impressed in winning the Bourbonnette Oaks at Turfway, earned 50 points, has 54 total, which has been enough to make the Oaks in the last couple of years. She would be making her first start on dirt in the Kentucky Oaks, but she is by Arrogate, the sire of Oaks winner Secret Oath.
That is true, but I look at the bottom of her pedigree and I see a lot of turf, and I wonder if maybe Everland is one of those classic turf/synthetic type of runners. She was impressive rallying from off the pace to capture the Bourbonnette Oaks, and she's been a wonderful claim by these connections, taking her on her final start as a 2-year-old and turning her into a stakes winner. I think it is going to be a big test, however, on Kentucky Oaks Friday against a strong field making her dirt debut. She still has lots to prove in my eyes.
And looking ahead on the schedule for the fillies who are still trying to prove themselves, there are 5 major point prep races remaining for the Oaks at 5 different tracks. Just FYI, the champion who was scratched out of what would have been her 3-year-old debut a few weeks ago, now targeting the Ashland, which looks like it'll come up really salty. But for now, we've got two major races coming up this
We
coming
have the Grade
Saturday.
2 Gulfstream Park Oaks and the Grade 2 Fantasy Stakes, and there are a lot of quality fillies entered in both of those races. Let's take a peek quickly at the Gulfstream Park Oaks field. We've got 9 in here, and I guess we'll find out, Nicole, if Fiona's magic is for real. She pulled off the upset last time out in the Devona Dale. We'll learn more about her quality. To me, the most fascinating runner in the race is the number 4, Ways and Means, who was so impressive winning her debut at Saratoga, then ran second in the Spinaway, then lost the rest of her campaign due to injury. But here she is for her 3-year-old debut for trainer Chad Brown.
I'm really excited to see the 3-year-old debut for Ways and Means, and I think it's very interesting that she makes it in this spot. There are a lot of nice, one-turn opportunities coming up for this 3-year-old filly division with, the 8 bells on the Oaks card and, sort of the races leading up to that, the Beaumont and other races. So the fact that she's coming out here going 2 turns for the first time in her life in a pretty competitive spot, I think that's interesting. And it really says something about what trainer Chad Brown thinks of this filly.
It certainly shows a lot of confidence on Chad's part. And again, if you watched her debut run at Saratoga last year, she looked like a stakes horse. She ran back in the Spinaway, ran so well. The injury unfortunately cost her the season, but it appears she's doing very, very well. Into Champagne is also a filly that's done some very good work for trainer Ian Wilkes. I'm interested to see how she handles stretching out around 2 turns, because thus far I've been fairly impressed with her development.
Yeah, and she was second in the Devona Dale to Fiona's Magic, who you mentioned. And meanwhile, in the Fantasy at Oaklawn, we'll take a look at this field and 8 stakes winners in this field. The Honeybee top 3, Lemon Muffin, Tapit Janali, and West Omaha. West Omaha herself coming out of the Fairgrounds series of preps, which we were just discussing, which had been a salty series this year. This is a really competitive field.
Oh, what a competitive field. What a great betting race. We'll see if Lemon Muffin is for real for Mr. Lucas, pulling off the upset last time out in the Honeybee. We'll see if West Omaha can bounce back from a somewhat disappointing performance in that race. Something tells me she will. I am curious to see what we get from My Main Squeeze, breaking from the inside post for trainer Michael Maker. Very impressive, winning her last 3 starts in New York, albeit against New York breds. This daughter of Audible drew a great post position for the stretch out.
Yeah, one of, as we said, the 8 stakes winners in that field. We've also got the top 2 coming in from Sunland. So really a lot of different jurisdictions kind of converging here. And next week on the Oaks Countdown, we'll recap everything for you from around these various jurisdictions and look ahead to the Oaks Preps coming up the first week of April as the field starts to crystallize here. It's a busy time on the Oaks Countdown. You can keep up with it here on DRFTV.